learners, and welcome to another class on tribes of Mizoram. This is from BSW 044. Today we shall be dealing with Mizoram. But before I go on, I would like to introduce to you the objective of this class. The region called Northeast India, which comprises the 7 sister states and Sikkim, is home to one of the largest concentration of diverse tribal communities in India, and Mizoram is one of these predominantly tribal inhabited states. The session focuses on the contemporary tribal situation of the state in Mizoram. By the end of this session, you will be able to describe the various customs and traditions of the major tribes of Mizoram. You will also be able to know the socio-economic situations among the major tribes of Mizoram and discuss the level of educational development among the tribes of Mizoram. Now let us go and introduce Mizoram. Mizoram is a predominantly tribal state located in the southern tip of Northeast India. The population of Mizoram, according to 2011 census, has been 10,97,206 approximately. Of them, 10,36,115 are scheduled tribes, that is the STs, constituting 94.43% of the total population of the state. The state has registered decadal growth of 23.43% of ST population, that is the scheduled tribe population, during 2001 to 2011. The state of Mizoram has 15 communities notified as scheduled tribes. The Lushai tribes have the major community constituting 70.9% of the total ST population. Chakma is the next largest ST community in the state. They constitute 9.35% of total ST population. Pau or Lakher, Kuki and Mar are the other tribes having together a sizable population constituting 16.36% of total ST population in the state. Now in Mizoram, majority of the ST population or the scheduled tribe population are Christians. In 2011 census, 90.07% of the ST population has been returned as Christians. The Buddhists at 8.78% constitute the second largest religious group of STs. Chakmas are the main followers of Buddhism. The tribal population of Mizoram can be broadly classified into Mizo tribes and the non-Mizo tribes. A brief explanation about the word Mizo may be relevant here in order to elucidate the nature of tribal affiliation and identification in Mizoram. Now, the term Mizo is a combination of two words, Mi, which means people, and Zo means highland or hill. So when you put these words together or combine them together into a single word, Mizo, it means Highlander. However, it is crucial to understand that it connotes only those groups having the same cultural patterns and common historical past. This indicates that the term Mizo is a generic one which encompasses a number of the sub-tribes of Mizoram who have more or less the same cultural patterns and shared historical past. In this sense, the term Mizo may be understood as a unifying force to bring together the various tribal groups of Mizoram. A number of sub-tribes are no longer significant because of the adoption of the customs and tradition as well as the dialects of the larger tribes and thereby losing their distinct identities. Some of the major tribes are Mizo, who also are known as Lushai, or Pau, known as Lai, and Lakher, who are also known as Mara and Chakma tribe. Now, having talked about Lushai, let us understand what does the Lushai tribes mean. The Lushai tribe is the largest of all the Mizo tribes and the inhabited area lies between 21 and 25 degree north latitude, 92 and 94 degree east longitude. The largest concentration of the Lushai is in the districts of Aizawl and Lunglei, and a sizable number of them are also found in other districts of northern Mizoram. The word Lushai is a corrupted form of the original word Lusei, which was adopted and popularized by the local British administrators. Lushai continued to be the official term, but among themselves they prefer Lusei over Lushai. So for official purpose and for teaching purpose, I shall be using the word Lusei over Lushai from now on. They arrived at present-day Mizoram somewhere between the 17th and 18th century along with many of the Mizo subtribe from Myanmar. Under Lusei, there are altogether 6 chief clans and 10 commoners clans, and under these clans are several sub-clans. Though there were other chiefly clans, the Silo clan ultimately emerged as the only clan which maintained hereditary chieftainship and ruled almost all the Lusei villages on the eve of British arrival in Mizoram. Immediately after their entry into Mizoram, the Silo chiefs consolidated their rule and extended their domain and made many non-Lusei clans and sub-tribes as their subject. The Lusei dialect is known as Dulian, which has today become the lingua franca among all the Mizo sub-tribes due to some reasons such as it is quite similar with the dialects of the other Mizo sub-tribes. It was adopted by the Christian missionaries as medium of instruction in schools, churches, and in translation works. Prior to the establishment of British colonial rule in Mizoram, a crude hierarchical social arrangement was already in place in the Lusei tribe. Since members of the Silo clan belonged to the ruling clan, they occupied the highest social status in their society, and as such all their customs and practices were adopted by the other clans. At the apex was the chief and his immediate family, followed by the Upa, who is also known as advisor or counselor to the chief. Zalen, families belonging to the chiefly clans who were exempted from paying the prescriptive paddy tribute. Next in the social pyramid were the agricultural experts or Ramwal, who were given the privilege of selecting the Jum plot first ahead of all the other families in the typical Mizo village before the arrival of the British. These people were followed by other officials such as the village priest known as Puitiam, the village blacksmith Thirdang. Now, these people obtained a basket of paddy from each household who had availed his services. At the bottom of the ladder were the common people, Namchon, who paid various kinds of tributes, taxes to the village chiefs. There is another group of people called Boy, who are situated below the common people and are the private subject of the chiefs who need to buy back their freedom to become free citizens. The British colonial penetration of erstwhile Lusei Hills, now in Mizoram, starting from the 1840s and culminating in the establishment and consolidation of the colonial rule in the 1890s, had profoundly affected the Lusei tribe, as was the case of the other Mizo tribes. The efforts of the colonial officials in the Lusei Hills were closely followed by those of the Christian missionaries, who succeeded in converting not only the Lusei tribe but also almost all the Mizo cognate tribes into Christianity by the 1930s. Though Christianity brought about an almost total transformation in the Lusei, that is the Mizo way of life and outlook, some customary practices have remained in modified forms. The efforts of the missionaries were successful in eliminating the customs and tradition which they found were not conforming to the Christian teachings through persistent preaching. Thus, Zu, which is also known as the rice beer in Mizo language, was replaced by tea as a popular drink among the Lusei. Zolbuk, the traditional institution for disseminating of knowledge and skills among the youth and a symbol of village solidarity and welfare, has been replaced by modern education and the formation of associations like the YMA, that is the Young Mizo Association. Animal sacrifices on ceremonial occasion and for propitiation of the evil spirits, which once were an integral part of Lusei religious beliefs, are no longer in practice. But such customary practices as the payment of bride price are still continued and encouraged, so are some of other customs and community traditions. The basic unit of the Lusei society is patrilocal, joint family, with its patrilineal descent and inheritance rules. A father is the head of the family and remains so till death. A Lusei family is composed of parents, their unmarried sons and daughters. The married sons are not expected to remain with their parents except the youngest son, who was expected to take care of his parents at old age. The inheritance of family property and succession of office, that is a chieftainship, was ultimogeniture, that is a principle of inheritance in which right of succession belongs to the youngest child. But after the consolidation of the British administration in Mizoram, inheritance among the chief's family was reversed in favor of primogeniture, that is, inheritance and succession rights to the firstborn. But other than the chief's family, ultimogeniture was the common practice. Inheritance by women was not sanctioned by the Lusei customary practices, but in the decades following independence, legal provisions were made to qualify women for inheritance of family property. However, the traditional rule of inheritance to family rights has been significantly changed in actual practice today, and it is no longer the exclusive right of the youngest son to inherit family property. Any son who gains the favor of his parents and who is loyal to the family tradition could be chosen as inheritor. The large-scale endorsement of modern economic practices among the Lusei and the resultant accumulation of wealth would cause serious conflict between people. Marriages in the Lusei society were solemnized only after having agreed on the terms set by the families of the bride and groom through negotiation. In the traditional Lusei society, bride price was paid in terms of mithun. In today's context, bride price is paid in cash ranging from rupees 300 to 400, and marriages are solemnized in the church according to Christian rites and rituals. The bride price is usually distributed among the members of the clan chosen by the bride's parents for the purpose of reaffirming the relationship that has already existed there, or to create new relation through it. Now, the amount distributed to each of these members is usually small in amount, but it was symbolic enough to show the bond of relationship among the same clan, or a symbol of the desire to create such relationships. At present, marriage among the Lusei retains some of its traditional characteristics, but the distribution of bride price as a mean to reaffirm kingship ties among the clan members has lost much of its relevance and importance. Bride price and its distribution has become basically a kind of fulfillment of the marriage rituals on traditional lines due to the fact that the amount of bride price remains constant despite the changing socio-economic conditions. The Lusei tribe in Mizoram has 95.6% literacy, with male and female literacy at 96.8% and 94.4% respectively. The gender gap in literacy is definitely small. Although Mizoram is on top in total literacy, in the field of higher education, the scenario is not as impressive. Merely 3.9% of the literate population is having educational level graduate and above. Lusei tribe is educationally better off as it has the highest, that is 4.3% population having this level. Now let us go and understand the Mizo agricultural routine. Agriculture is the mainstay of the Lusei economy. They have practiced from time immemorial a method of agriculture called shifting cultivation or slash and burn or jhum cultivation by cutting down the forest on the hillsides and burning them after properly drying them in the sun. This practice we can see is most relevant in many of the northeast states. This requires a continuous shifting of land under cultivation as the fertile soil layer at the top would quickly erode after one season. Even today, this method is the dominant form of agriculture in Mizoram. In the interior villages, agriculture still plays a role in the social and economic life of the Lusei tribe, but there are significant changes in the way it functions during olden days. In olden days, private ownership of land was not possible due to the nature of cultivation, rendering social harmony and solidarity at the village. Moreover, the various social and religious activities of the people were inextricably linked with the system of agricultural work and agricultural land. However, today, people are no longer satisfied with the monotonous agricultural works and began to engage in diversified economic activities. Following the Mautam famine of 1959, which brought havoc in the erstwhile Lusei Hills, that is in Mizoram, insurgency broke out in 1966, led by the Mizo National Front with the aim to secede from India through armed struggle. The main brunt of the insurgency was borne by the Lusei tribe, that is mainly the Mizos, as it was mainly confined in the middle and northern part of Mizoram, which had the Lusei tribe as the largest group. Peace finally came with the signing of the Memorandum of Settlement on 30th June 1986. However, the experiences during the height of insurgency have lasting impact on the Lusei society, particularly the grouping of villages in which a number of villages were forcibly relocated at certain grouping centers in order to better facilitate counter-insurgency measures by the Government of India. The process of grouping disturbed the traditional village harmony, which was heavily influenced by homogeneity and attachment to village land. Thus, the shifting of many remote villages to form larger units led to significant changes in the structure of social relations among the Lusei, whereby the traditional village homogeneity was replaced and by relatively differentiated structures of relationship. Now let us understand about the Pau tribe, that is the Lai tribe. According to the 2011 census, the Pau population is 51,406, which is about 5% of the total population of Mizoram. The Lai or Pau tribes are mainly concentrated in the southern part of Mizoram around Pongpui, that is known as the Blue Mountain. Although a large number of them are living across the international border in the Chin state of Myanmar, Longlai district is where the main concentration of the Pau tribes is found, and Longlai town itself is the seat of the Pau Autonomous District Council. Almost the entire Pau tribes today are Christians with 99.28%, and the level of literacy is also quite high among them. Literacy rate among the Pau tribes is 91.6%. The entire region of Pau habitation in Mizoram is on the hill range and are generally located on the hilltops with heights ranging from 2,500 feet to 4,000 feet. The entire area enjoys a pleasant climate and is neither very hot during summer nor too cold in winter. There are a number of Pau clans and sub-clans, but the principal ones are Zathang, Chingza, Loteo, Longching, Nyanlum and Kenglot. Despite the numerous clans and sub-clans, the Pau tribes have only 4 main dialects. The 4 principal dialects are Khofo and Tatlang, which are generally spoken in Mizoram. Halka or Hakka and Laizo are spoken in Myanmar alone. I hope I am able to pronounce the name correctly. Now, Phungka, Lungfer, Lungtian, Vartek, etc. Thatlang dialect is spoken in the village of Neotlang. Lungzartum, Archuang, Thialdung Gilui, Pangrang, Tlatlang, Wombuk, Sangao, Pangkhwa and Chiural. Their dialect is classified as belonging to the Tibeto-Burmese language and they do not have their own script. It was only through the efforts of the pioneer missionaries that their dialect was reduced into written form using the Roman script. At present, only a tiny section of the Pau people living speak this language. The vast majority of them, however, have forgotten their dialect. Now they speak Dulian or the Mizo dialect. This may be due to the fact that during the initial period of missionary intervention in Mizoram, Dulian or Mizo dialect was prompted by the missionaries as the medium of instruction in school, and the Bible was translated only in Dulian, that is the Mizo dialect, for many decades, and thereby forcing the Paui to learn and adopt Dulian, that is the Mizo dialect. The Pauis of Mizoram as of today are entirely Christians as mentioned before, and Christian rites and ceremonies have replaced almost all the traditional Paui religious rites and ceremonies. Nembiakkim, which is also known as church building, is the sacred center, and the pastoral deacons, that is the elders, are the most influential leaders in their society. They attend church service every Sunday and on some auspicious days. After becoming Christians, their most important festival is Christmas, followed by New Year and Easter Sunday. The Pauis have discarded many of their traditional folk dances and songs during the early phase of Christianity in Mizoram. Today, they are reviving many of these dances and festivals through the help and support of the state government and the different cultural organizations that are established for this purpose. Among the important folk dances of the Pauis, Raukatlak is one which is the Lusei equivalent of Chiro. It is performed only by women with the help of men who clap several pairs of bamboo in unison. This is what everyone knows as the bamboo dance. Chonglai Zon is another dance which was performed during a traditional religious ceremony, but this ceremony has lost its relevance and usage today as a result of the wholesale conversion of the Pauis to Christianity. With the spread of Christianity and education, many of the customary rites and practices regarding marriage have lost their relevance and are no longer observed. However, like their Lusei neighbors, the Pauis too retain certain features of their traditional rites and practices even in marriage. Church marriage in accordance with Christian rites under the supervision of the pastors is held. Among the Pauis, the age of marriage ranges between 16 and 18 for girls and 25 for men. In olden days, the age of marriage was slightly lower than what it is today. Marriage by negotiation is the usual form of acquiring life partner. Besides negotiation, marriage by elopement is the other form of marriage, which however is accorded lesser importance by the society and the people. This form of marriage, however, is resorted to by the Paui youth in the present scenario in greater number, as the attitude of the society began to soften on this subject. Among the Pauis, the usual form of marriage is monogamy, especially after becoming Christians. Though polygamy was permitted in the past, it was only the chiefs and wealthy men who used to have more than one wives. In the Paui society, the rule of residence after marriage is patrilocal. In case of divorce, depending on its nature, bride price is altered, refunded or forfeited. When a wife sought divorce, bride price is refunded, whereas if divorce is sought by the husband, the main bride price is generally forfeited, except in case of an established adultery charge. The residential family pattern of the Paui is either of a joint family or a nuclear family. After marriage, the son and his wife remains with the parents until their firstborn child. Normally, the eldest son continues to live with his parents. At the time of need, all the kin members come forward to render their help. The Paui are patrilineal in descent and trace their relationship through the male line. The eldest son inherited all his parental property, including the ancestral home. A daughter has no right to the inheritance. Presently, however, this practice has become almost redundant, as increasing number of parents divide their family properties among their sons and even to their daughters. The major economic resources of the Pauis are land and forest. The primary economic activity of the tribe is shifting cultivation on the hill slopes. Land for shifting cultivation cannot be owned individually, and the village council acts as a custodian of such land. The village council distribute plots of the land. Now with this, we come to the end of the session. We shall continue with the class in the next session. Thank you for listening.